Being that it's about 2 or 3 minutes past 7, we'll open up the September 28th meeting of the Finance Committee. Hi, John. We're just starting. Thank you. And this evening, so we just opened the meeting, and we are pleased to have a couple of guests this evening. The town manager is with us, and also Peter Schaefer is here, school superintendent. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. This is more in a series of a couple meetings that we're going to have. Specifically, part of our meetings are about the capital plan. So, does everyone have their capital plan? There's nothing new, or is there a newer version? Or are we going on?
We have newer versions of it.
Okay.
And we do have where we stand as far as what we think are priorities, which could change between now and obviously the time we go to town meeting. And I also have an updated warrant.
Okay, good. Cool. Let's get into
Reviewed
it.
by the Board of Selectmen, reviewed by town council, and pretty much ready to go.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well,
wherever you want to start, we can obviously start with.
yeah. Let's start with our guests, and let's start with the superintendent. There you go. We'll share this one. We'll just talk about it.
Thank you, and I appreciate you having me and giving me the opportunity to give you some information and answer any questions that you might have. And also, I want to thank John with the board here, and then John publicly with his team at the town hall for assisting us in putting together this information and being able to collaborate so successfully with the team at the town hall with the information. What I've given you is a memo that was submitted to the school committee. These are the school committee approved proposals in additions to the town capital plan. As they're represented here, they're not in priority order. They were not voted in a priority order by the school committee. These are things that are on our radar screen. So they're not necessarily things that are considered an emergency and need to get done at any time or place. There is a sense of urgency behind some of them, but nothing that's immediate nature that could somehow substantially disrupt the operation, or things that we're overly concerned with. They're things that we want to put on the plan in a responsible way so that we continue to maintain the good investment that the town has in the infrastructure of its school buildings. One of the items, the first thing on this list, is a feasibility study for the construction of a new school. I want to be very clear about this. This comes with a price tag that is high, but a percentage of it is reimbursed to the town by the state of Massachusetts, the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So the entire estimate is $750,000. Now, the state has just reimbursed us for windows at just over 57%. So there's a reimbursement figure with the state. They would help us with this number, and the reason it's a big number is because a feasibility study includes examining all of your infrastructure, your educational needs, and when you emerge, you come up with a plan and schematic designs to build a school. So it's a very comprehensive study that involves all members of town boards and members of the Abington community on a building committee that come up with the design of a school building, of what you're going to have for your town and its educational needs for the next 30 to 50 years. And so a lot of people look at $750 and it's a lot of money. But it's a lot of money because you get all of those schematic design documents and you're ready to build a school. The reason the Massachusetts School Building Authority does it this way is so that there's some partnership and control over costs and some understanding of what you're doing, so you're not building these Taj Mahal schools with these independent studies that go on in towns around Massachusetts, that used to go on in towns around Massachusetts, and they're beyond what you really need to serve as a useful purpose for education. So I hope I was clear with that. I say that everywhere I go, and I respect and appreciate the questions I get around the price tag because it's a big number. But it's shared with the state, and again, you end up with schematic designs to build a school. That is not something that's the number one priority. That's something we need to do as a town. And you see in the communities around Abington, I don't know that you can find, other than Holbrook, a community that isn't doing this now, building a school, or hasn't already completed a school. And with our buildings, Abington has responsibly maintained its buildings. But we've got a couple of buildings that were built at the end of the Depression. And if we're doing our job the right way, education has changed since the end of the Depression. So this is something that we want to plan for. Questions?
I have one quick one. We did something like a feasibility study before, correct?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
and I understand that it's like outdated, but if there's any questions that the public may have as to why we have to do this again, maybe you can address why we need to be updating it or
That's a
starting brand
great-
new from ground zero. It might just
Great
answer some
question.
questions.
Great question. We did one in 2004 with Strukalowski, Hoyt, and Raymond. And we did that under the old school building assistance authority regulation that we had to conduct our own feasibility study before we made application for the construction of the school. That was what towns were required to do. Since then, the entire structure in Massachusetts has changed, and you're required to do one with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Because, as you point out, when we did our own, and as I said earlier, towns were doing their own, and the state was getting on the hook for building these buildings that were beyond what they really needed to build, and it was a waste of tax dollars. And so now they require you to do your own feasibility study. So back in 2004, we were required to do that to make any progress. So we did the right thing. We did what we were supposed to do. And we've gotten very good use out of that plan. That's the plan that we continue to use, and we have used for the decisions that we've made about the changes we've made in the structure of the Abington Public Schools, such as when it came time to make tough decisions about closing schoolhouses, which is something that nobody wanted to do. We referred to that plan, and we stayed true to that plan because that plan was thoughtfully created by a wide group of stakeholders from the town, different representative groups on a committee and a feasibility study that took a look at all of our buildings and what we needed to do as an educational system to provide the best infrastructure for kids. And so many of the things you see here on this capital plan or on previous capital plans are things off of that study. So it was a responsible thing to do, and we continue to use it. Matter of fact, for example, when we did the application for the Woodsdale window projects, which again, we're getting reimbursed for, it was that study that was integral in creating the grant application that we received hundreds of thousands of dollars for to help us do those windows across town. I mean, so that was, again, an investment that paid off in that way. So it was a great question, thank you.
Peter, in looking at this, what would be your first school that you would consider building?
That I would look at
Based
building?
upon this, depending on the feasibility study, does it look at all of our schools, all of our needs, and it comes out with, well,
It looks at
a
everything.
high school?
Yeah. It looks at everything, and what the feasibility study that we did before provided was that what we need is a 5 through 8 middle school. And the buildings have other needs. For example, Abington High School in the town of Abington has no auditorium. So if, at the end of this study, we were able to build a middle school somewhere, and I don't know that this is even possible, but if you could build it up here in the town hall area with the library and the high school, it creates a nice campus and center for the community with Riley Field. I don't know that that's possible, but then maybe you can couple that with building an auditorium for the town of Abington at Abington High School, which would be of good use to the community at large, increasing the size of the high school library. Is another recommendation from that feasibility study. And that's, again, something that benefits more than just the high school students itself. It's something that others would be able to benefit from, the town would benefit from. But that's the type of work that would be done with the feasibility study, and that's the type of work that was done before. Building a 5 through 8 middle school solves all of the space issues pre-kindergarten through grade 8. Everybody wants to build a high school because high school is your flagship. The high school in Abington is laid out like a high school. And so programmatically, in terms of teaching needs, our high school is a functioning and successful high school with what we need. The biggest need is to provide renovations there and then build a 5 through 8 school that would solve those space issues pre-K through 8.
And, any estimate on the percent of that estimated cost that would be reimbursed?
It would just be a guess from me,
Yeah.
and based on the Woodsdale window projects, I would be hopeful that it would be ballpark around 57, 58, 59%. You get, and that's just, I need to qualify that with, I'm not certain. I base that on the Woodsdale window reimbursement, and also I know if you can do certain things with your application, like agree to do a green school, you get a benefit, and the state pays you a higher reimbursement. If you can use one of their model schools, you save money because you're using a design that's already created and crafted that the state already has on file, and if it meets what you want to do for kids, and there's no reason to believe that there wouldn't be a model school that we would use that would be appropriate. Nobody wants to break the bank. We just want to improve the facilities for our students, for teaching and learning.
How much land, Peter, are you talking about for this middle school?
Previously, in the old SBA, we went looking for a site that was 25 acres,
Okay.
because that matches the number of pupils that would go into that building. Under the new regulations, they don't give you a certain acreage. What we'd want to do is we'd want to put something together that provided enough acreage that you would have multiple purpose playing fields around the school that would be appropriate for the number of pupils that you had there, provide enough for the entrance and the exit for people safely from the school building in an organized and thoughtful way. You'd want to provide enough parking for people at the school building. We wouldn't want to be short-sighted. And so I couldn't give you an acreage because I just don't know.
It should be in the area of 25.
That was under the previous regulation,
Okay.
but 25 isn't required anymore, so it would be less, it would be less.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Well,
The second item that we have, which would be the item that's of the greatest concern at this time, would be the masonry repairs at the Frollo Middle School, the center and the north school buildings. That's just repairing the brick and the mortar in aging buildings. The estimate on that is $350,000 per school building. These are large buildings.
That's per building.
Per building. But that doesn't mean that it's something that you couldn't even chip away at and work at in different sections in a responsible way. It's not, again, there's no danger of a structural problem at this point, but as you lose the integrity of the brick and mortar, those things eventually become a concern. As water penetrates the building.
Never freezes.
We were in a situation where, we had the early childhood center, which is now the Beaver Brook. And we were concerned about the brick and the mortar there, but that was really remediated when we did the windows, because the brick and the mortar attaches to those systems, and that's how the water was penetrating through the window and where it meets the brick and the mortar. And obviously we put a new roof in that building, so that's no longer a concern. Then the roof repair and replacement, different sections of the high school, the area over the Paul K. Smith Music Room, the area over the Art and Home Economics area, and the boys' locker room are areas that need to be replaced. The others aren't of such a concern at the high school. The other roofs areas Then the Woodsdale School also, and the north and the center. Now, again, those aren't roofs that need to be replaced in the next year or 2 years. But in a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, these are things that you want to keep on the radar screen and be aware of. The replacement of the univents at the, I apologize, the Frollo Middle School replacement of the Garaventer chairlift. There's no elevator at the Frollo. It's about handicap accessibility. That chairlift works for handicap accessibility. It's a chair that moves up and down a staircase, and it's gotten to a point where we can't get parts for it anymore. So if the wrong part breaks because they don't make them anymore, we can't repair it. And the cost to replace it is $55,000. Now, again, that's not something that we need to do today because we're able to keep it in good working order and safe for use. But it's getting to a point where it's beyond its usable lifespan. So again, we want to put on the radar screen. I should jump back a second, if I could, to the roofs. I forgot something, I apologize.
Quick question.
Yep.
How old is the chairlift right now?
I don't know. It's decades old. It's not, I mean, it may have been one of the original parts to the building.
It's pretty old.
It's old.
It is old.
It's older than 50
Yeah.
years, so,
It was old when they used to have the town meetings there.
yeah. Back to the roofs for a second. We are talking to John D'Agostino, found a company that works with a solar company that installs roofs. We are talking to them and exploring that. I have no idea where that discussion goes because we have a lot of questions to ask. It may be something that works, putting solar panels up and putting roof on buildings. It's certainly worth the due diligence to thoroughly and thoughtfully investigate it. If it's a benefit to the town and the schools, we'll do it. But we're meeting with the companies and we want to get references, we want to see how it's worked in other places, we want to see how safe are the solar panels, where does the electricity go, how long does it take what's our obligation to maintain them, what's our obligation in terms of the contract with the power company. And so I don't have those answers, but that's something that we're doing that's creative and doing some homework around. So, center school replacement of the unit ventilators. Those are also building original ventilators. That's the air exchange system that works with the heating system. They work now, but they're older, and we keep replacing parts in them as we can, but at some point they need to be replaced at a cost of $100,000. I'm sorry, at $150,000. The problem with them is that as they exchange air, as they get older, they start exchanging too much cold air. And then the boiler works harder to keep the room at the appropriate temperature. It's a system that, again, was there with the building when it was built in 1939, I'm going to say. So it's another system that we want to keep on the radar screen. And then the emergency generator replacement and the associated switchgear at Abington High School for $100,000. When it comes to the generator serves the purposes of the high school as it stands, but it will not serve the purposes of the town if the town were to ever use it as an emergency shelter. The emergency generator, as it stands, again, it's an old generator. Every year we maintain it. Every year we load test it to make sure that it can handle the capacity that we would require of it in an emergency. In an emergency, it provides minimal lighting in the hallways for the safe exit of people from the building. It also provides a backup. It's a natural gas generator. It provides a backup for the freezer and the refrigeration units for the money that we've invested for the food service program, so we don't lose that in a storm. It also provides enough energy to fire one boiler in the event that you need to maintain the temperature in the building for an extended period of time in the winter. And that's why I say it serves our purpose in the school department, because, you know, in case of an emergency, it would do what we needed to do for those purposes. To serve the town as a backup generator for the town, if it needed to be a shelter, it wouldn't do that. I mean, it would provide minimal, it would in the summer, but it would provide minimal assistance.
Wouldn't you be better off to go after a generator that, weren't we looking to do that? The town, to have, so that if we needed to cook meals or anything like that during,
Yes, I think that, you know, if we're going to look at the repair of the generator, it may make sense to look at putting in a larger generator, which obviously they're expensive. You're talking a good amount of money. Now, I had discussed the possibility of replacing the generator along with the solar panel and lump that all into a PP purchase power agreement that would, you know, cover those costs over a period of time. Generators, the useful life of a generator, and you know, Ken could probably answer this a lot better than I, it's going to be at least 20 years, if not more, properly maintained, tested, and utilized during those testing periods. I think that we could get a good 20 years out of the generator. So that's a possibility, but again, it's just something we're in the exploration stages right now. The roofs are something that we don't need to do this year, but certainly if we have the ability to have somebody else pay for it, and it works for the schools, then it's something that we should pursue.
So this 100,000 is for
Just a repair of...
that which replace or
Replace.
repair the one that's there?
This is the estimate that we got for replacing it.
Replacing just
What we have,
now.
right.
Right.
I think if you're looking at a larger generator, you're looking at $500,000 to probably do the entire school, or somewhere within the $350,000 to $500,000 range.
The number I have wasn't spec'd out for the purposes of a shelter or the
This is
town.
just
It was to replace what we have
Right.
in an aging generator. So I apologize.
Yeah,
no, it was, we had discussed that.
that possibility.
At a previous meeting, so.
Am I correct in saying that number 2, the masonry repairs would probably,
Right.
if you had to have one versus the other, and you
That-
could get it tomorrow?
That comes to
That would
the
come to
front
the
of
top.
our list.
Okay. Did you have a question? Anybody have any questions with regard to this?
And as we talked about earlier, in terms of the feasibility piece, the study that was done in 2004, you know, we would want to do it in a way that matches that work and recommendations of that work in terms of what buildings would be most useful and online in terms of maximizing our infrastructure. So
What's the average, like, let's say we did the feasibility study, what's the cost of a new middle school these days on
it
average?
depends what community you're in, because some people have been irresponsible and spent
Yes.
millions of dollars
We've read
on
about
these
those.
Tajma schools.
Right.
The
Given one for the size and the scope of our town, do you have any sense?
I'm worried about throwing numbers out there
Then
because
don't.
people are going to go to it,
Then don't.
and I'd be doing from my memory of the numbers we did in 2004, which
Then don't even say it. That's it, because that's just generally the next question that will come up after that is, okay, they've got us, you know, we really should have this. What's the cost and the sticker shock of that?
yeah.
Well, I think with, you know, some of the approaches, would, you know, if we could use a model,
Right.
you know, school, we would be able to hone in on the number
Right.
a lot easier if it met the needs that the superintendent and the school committee have for a middle school. I think that cost containment, you know, the same model being used over and over again, it has a lot of validity to it. But who knows what those costs are going to be based on the nuances and needs of this community. You know, if we put an auditorium on at the high school and we do a campus setting, which I think is something we really like to appeal to, and And what happens when you do these campus settings and you invest in your school system, your property values begin to increase because people want to move to the community where they have good functioning schools, and the school system is a good school system. And, those are all important factors to consider. So when you look at building a new school, it has an intrinsic value to the community in sustaining and improving property values. And everyone that I hear talk about, that I'm in touch with in the town are concerned about their property values. And they're looking at ways in which they can either maintain or improve those property values. And one of the best ways to do it, is with a good, sound school system in place. Then you have services, police and fire and highway and other services that are also very important and needed as well. So.
Does anyone have any questions, the superintendent? No? Anybody? Anything else you want to run by us?
Thank you for
All right.
listening. Thank you for your questions, because I'm always concerned about the information that's out there. And if you have others, please call me, please email me. I want to be able to get to people's questions.
Thank you, we will. Thank you very much, thanks for coming in, Peter. Thank you. Well, since that didn't take very long, I don't think we need a break or anything.
No.
We have Kenan now.
I didn't bring the props.
Thanks again.
Peter, take care.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks for coming in.
Hello.
And so yes, thank you. Hi, Kenan. We have Kenan Connell from the Highway Department. Nice to have you in.
Great to be here.
Thanks.
You want me to pass out the stuff, or do you have
Well-
it in similar to the format that we have in them?
I only brought one that I received the other day.
Let me just make sure that it is the ones that we have here.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to pass these out. These are the new, latest and greatest.
Oops.
I'll take this.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is the revised capital plan?
It's where we are as of 9:20.
Okay.
AM.
AM. Just being silly, 9 AM.
Oh, yeah.
9:20 AM.
Yeah. If you don't have any,
That's all I have.
gotta get one. You have two there or one?
Double stapled.
It's not stapled together. There must be a bunch to be sure.
We have all the
Staple
pages.
both sides in so you can't.
Yeah, we just have to make sure we have all the pages.
That's good.
These are stapled here. There's two stapled.
All right, and highway, we're, right on the top of the second page.
Top of the bottom.
It's the top of mine, I think. You
Okay.
guys okay down there?
Everyone have the same, we're on the same tablet?
Yes, I think so.
Except for mine. Mine's
Yeah.
just a little different the way I'm starting off. Just a couple of quick comments if you're ready.
Ready.
I have 6 items shown here on this year's capital plan. I noticed the school superintendent only had a few items himself, so you can see from some of your other meetings already, the department heads really aren't putting in all of our needs, although that radar screen that Peter spoke of seems to be getting quite large.
Yes.
There's a very big radar screen out here for the town of Abington, developed over the past few years from the capital plan, not being able to support all the items that are in it. Myself, I wanted to mention our roadways, which is an item that's further down in the plan here. The road program funded under the Chapter 90 program is really the only restoration funding that we use at this time. Currently, we have about $300,000 annually that we allocate from that towards the road program, which doesn't really go very far. We do the best we can. We're aggressive with it. We try to do some road construction each year. But as you drive around Abington and you go into some of the older developments, and I'm constantly being hammered by people that live you know, in these developments with the sidewalks that are totally deteriorated and the roadways that are given out. I could name them. And I've been being solicited from some of these residents to find out, you know, how we're going to achieve funding. I wanted John to mention a little bit, we've talked a little bit about a more longer-term plan of coming up with creative ways to fund a road program, and I think it's rather important to kind of get that out there, because people living in the developments are waiting for the Chapter 90 money to come along and get into their roadways, and unless it's really dire, I'm just unable to do it. And especially looking forward, I'm looking at Route 139 falling apart daily, and I can see that we're going to have to do some work out there next year. It's going to eat up probably most of our funding.
One of the approaches that we, I think, will make sense, and you know, maybe it's something that can be supported as additional debt comes off at the end of 13, where we could borrow or debt exclude, for example, an equal amount of what we receive in Chapter 90 money, so that gives us double the amount of money. Or we can go as high as saying, putting together a $5 million exclusion plan that would be for infrastructure purposes, for roads and sidewalks and you know, bridges if we have them, and those types of needs. I think the longer you put them off, the more expensive they become. It's not like, you know, waiting till it goes on sale at the blue light special at Kmart's or something, where you can, you know, then get all of your work done and go out and do all your Christmas shopping. You're not going to be able to do that with infrastructure repairs and needs, and the longer you wait, the greater the extent of money that has to be spent to repair them, to bring them back up to a certain grade that we consider, that Kennan considers to be acceptable.
So I just wanted to get that out there, because I am getting a lot of people that are wondering, you know, when's my road coming? When's my sidewalk going to get fixed? When are you going to redo the curbs in here? And we want to, and we try to as best we can, but it's really a funding issue. There is a manpower issue, of course, with the layoffs and the reductions that we've had that way too. And also, this group included, we did fund a sidewalk program and a drainage program, which was a great help to us. We purchased some small equipment so our in-house crews could do sidewalk restoration and repairs, or some moderate-sized patching, but it has not been funded over the past few years with all the troubles that we've been having. But that was a great help in itself. I have it back in this 5-year plan, although I don't show any funding for that in this first year.
As you look at this plan, just so everyone is on the same page, that $300,000 will show up as a state expenditure. That's the Chapter 90 funding that we spoke about earlier. It's in here. We're not raising, we're not appropriating the money here. This is directly from Chapter 90.
So you're looking for additional funding?
Well, I wanted to put it out there as we sit here tonight. I didn't expect that a plan is going to be developed for this fiscal year, but I wanted it out there that it is it's on the radar screen, so to speak, but hopefully a shorter term. I know it's a priority of the town manager as well to try to come up with a way to do some additional road work around town.
And the reason for it, I think, is really when, you know, it's a visible result. It's like your trash barrels. You put them out every week. It's a service that's provided, and people like it. The same is true when they're traveling the roadways. They want a good road surface. They want to be able to travel safely and conveniently, and without having to have their front ends realigned every 6 months or 3 months because, you know, they hit a pothole that turned out to be a crater that, you know, was a little patchwork that became a larger issue because we don't have the money to commit to the infrastructure repairs that are necessary. So.
And we're seeing an increase in claims, you know, pothole claims and whatnot. We have a certain amount of time to repair a hole once we're notified, but there's more of it out there now. The roads are getting older. The sewer jobs came in all at once and paved everything.
Yeah.
And now those same roads are all equally getting older at the same time, and it's tough to keep up with. And from a a personal perspective, I'm running out of, I don't want to be making excuses. I want to be providing information to residents to let them know where we're at and how we're trying to, remedy the problem.
In some respects, when the superintendent spoke about, the town has made a commitment in the school system, they built some very nice buildings, and they want to preserve or protect that investment. I think the same is true with your infrastructure. We spent a tremendous amount of money over the years on infrastructure. A lot of it needs to now be protected and repaired and cultivated and brought up to standard, and it's just not. You can see it slowly chipping away. It's almost like a cancer in the sense that it's something that's debilitating to the community as a whole, and we want to instill pride, very similar to what we want to do with our school system. We want to protect our school system, we want to improve it. The same is true on this end as far as maintenance of our roadways.
We're basically held to emergency repairs only. We have about a little over $20,000 in our public works line in that regard to take care of 230, 40 roads. It's just not possible. So we're just doing the best we can to keep things rolling.
How many miles is it in roads?
We have about 66 accepted from the state. A little more, give or take, with the parking lots, driveways, schools.
66 miles of road.
Roughly accepted, a little more. There's some that are in process still. One other comment before I start going down the list here is when the first list was kicked out to us with the previous 5-year plans that we've developed over the past few years, which some of you are privy to or if you've seen, we have made some advances at the highway department to get some of the equipment that was listed on the plan earlier through some opportunities through the transportation bond grants and the Chapter 90 grants. So I've taken them off the plan. So most of what you see in here is not going to be a truck or something like that for the highway department, a piece of equipment, because we've been able to achieve most of that. Our small equipment, some of our larger units that we got through the Chapter 90 grants, we've addressed some of our immediate needs that way, including one of our snow machines. You're going to see one additional one listed in here that was originally to be funded through the Lennar program or through the base. And when we get to that, I think the town manager may speak to that a little bit, that we're looking to possibly fund that in another direction as well, because we really need it. We have to have it. So, all right, so the first item on the plan is really not specific to highway. It's really to all of the departments. It's the fuel pump station. Down at the highway, we have a gas pump and a diesel pump. Both of them are underground storage tanks, 8,000 gallons apiece. We recently did an underground storage tank inspection by an independent third party, which is required by the state. Our tanks came up in very good condition. They're, I think, a 1996 install. But the pumps are not doing so well. They're out in the weather. They're not sheltered by a canopy or a roof or anything like that. They're in heavy use. We have over 85 some odd pieces of registered equipment that are using them constantly. It's a key system which identifies each department and each vehicle independently, so we know who to charge off, who we do the bills to. We bill out to every department from the highway department. We bill out to everybody as if we're running a service station. I have a rather large number on here. It's a rather generous estimate because the estimate was developed by me, not by an engineer, and not by any other outside assistance really, other than some research on the internet a little bit and some in-house capabilities with our mechanics, myself, and Jack Kane was a great help in this as well, and some of the people that we use to work on the pumps when they're broken now. So we're under a state mandate to rectify a situation that we have, that we cannot reconcile usage of the pump to any potential or possible leakage in the tanks, which has to be done on a daily basis. So part of what I'm presenting in here is new pumps, because the ones that we have there are approaching 15 years old roughly. They're weathered, they're not working well, they're not pumping well. The digital readout isn't working on one of them, the gasoline pump, which is very important to us. So we're having trouble with some of the identification of billing and also with the leak detection. You have to physically measure the tank each day and weigh it against what the key reads are. And that's a lot of math when you have all the departments together and currently we're in violation of not doing it correctly. So we're doing it when we have a drop, a fuel drop, that's when we check the number against the measurement. So, John, you haven't seen this yet. You asked me to break down the costs of this, which I've done in this presentation here. This is a capital expenditure which is in the interest of all departments under the town's umbrella. Our gasoline and diesel fuel station services the town's entire fleet of approximately 85 vehicles registered, plus our small equipment such as lawnmowers, trimmers, as well as the larger off-road construction equipment. The station consists of two 8,000-gallon underground storage tanks which were installed in 1996. The product is dispensed into the vehicles through two separate pumps, one for diesel fuel and one for gasoline. Recently, by state mandate, we're required to have an independent evaluation done on the UST. The results of that evaluation identify the town as non-compliant with current standards for leak detection required by the DEP, referring the underground storage tank, and also violating the Stormwater Act, which is in effect. Both of these violation areas may lead to a fairly stiff fine to the town on a daily basis until rectified. The possibility of a shutdown of the station is also conceivable. This, coupled with the fact that our aged and weathered pumps already have issues which will require extensive repair costs, previous administrations as well as the current town manager have agreed that this is a shared priority for all departments. The proposed plan includes the following estimates. A canopy to be installed over the pump island to reduce weather-related effects on both the pumps themselves and the employees as they operate the station. I estimated about $15,000. Fire suppression installed in the canopy, I estimate around $10,000. A new card or key system identifying the department, employees, or vehicles, which I just mentioned is currently a key system which is kind of antiquated. They have newer swipe cards and it's a little more advanced. They may even have a wireless version, which would help us with some of these costs. A new gasoline pump complete.
How much is that?
I'm sorry, 16.
The swipe card?
16,000 I put as an estimate for that system. New gasoline pump complete with vapor recovery nozzles, etc. 12,000. The same for a diesel pump. Excavation and conduit installation to the new maintenance facility, 5,000. Leak detection and fuel usage reconciliation monitoring system, which we currently have what's called a Vita-Root system. And it's in the old maintenance garage, and it doesn't work anymore. It's required to be there. It's a monitoring system that measures the fuel in the tank and whether or not there's been any leaks and whatnot. It works in concert with the other.
How much is that?
I put 10,000. And then restoration to the asphalt areas affected from the previous trenching to the older garage and approaches to the gas island, which are not directly related, but I put them in there in the estimate of 20,000. And please note again, I've inflated the estimate slightly to allow for any engineering costs that might be applicable in the design or in the bid process of this project. And I've already spoken to a few people about pump installations at gas stations and things, and I just want to remind people that we're under municipal bidding procurement laws and whatnot. We have to have prevailing wage, we have to include all the things that make the bid legitimate, that drive the cost up a little bit.
At least 25%.
This is a picture, I only have one with me, of something that would be similar to what I'm proposing on the top and the current
But it is
situation
not.
today from a distance. But we keep it neat, we keep it clean, we keep it running well,
Yeah.
but it's got quite a few problems. You can certainly pass it around if you want.
What was the 5,000 for, kind of?
I'm going to give you this, John.
Yes.
Excavation.
Observation, yeah.
Excavation.
I'm Russell John.
No, no, she wins out.
Well, I just figured it's your plan ultimately that goes through. So.
She needs it for the minutes.
Okay, so that kind of covers the fuel station, unless anybody wants to talk about it.
Just a, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The tank itself, it was in 1996?
Yes.
Were the pumps put in 96?
I believe
well?
so.
They were.
They were? About how long is the tank? How long, what's the average?
Our tank is in very good shape. Those are the tanks you would purchase today if you were going to put them in the ground. So we're in good shape there. We just had that inspection done on those, and that inspection was favorable, it was very good. It's just the above-ground monitoring, the requirements that we're looking for.
It tanks, depending upon the change in the regulation, could last you 10, 15, 20 years, depending upon the
We're already
regulations.
there.
And we're there,
And more.
so, and so now we need to, certainly look at replacing.
You definitely need to change the system because right now it's all manual. Guy has to go out, take the readings, and figure out what vehicles are used at charge each department. With the system he's talking about, they have it in another town. It goes automatically into a computer, so.
And all you need to do, and if we match it up to our financial software package, which we could do, then through that system, it could generate the invoices to the departments or charge those departments to take that money.
And just so you know that I'm practicing some due diligence and I'm in the middle of it, I've been weighing this against doing away with the pumps and going into private, going into a bid process. But there's a lot of issues there, and it's not looked upon favorably by the department heads I've spoken with, particularly the police, the fire, our own mechanics, because we kind of control our destiny during a storm. When everyone else is shut down, we're up and running. It's very important. We run our fuels out when we're plowing, and you go down Route 18 and they're all shut down. You can't find anything. So it's very important during an emergency time. And but I wanted you to know that I've kind of looked it around a little bit because I'm sure we could bid that someone had to have a generator, or they had to be open 24 hours, or all these kind of things. But it's complex.
And I think our price per gallon is favorably bid out among 19 other communities, so
That's right.
we
save
use
about-
a tremendous amount of gasoline throughout the 19 communities. So I don't know what our price is, but today our price could be,
We save about 25 cents a gallon, or maybe up to 30 cents a gallon. And if you're using 50,000, 60,000 gallons in a year.
and if you're at Stop
12,000
and Shop, it's a $250 bill before you can save that kind of money.
Okay.
Food shop.
Barbara, you had a comment?
Ken, does that have a generator? Is
We
there
have a generator located
that-
right here at the facility that we
runs the
want to tie
pump?
into. Currently, it's tied into this one over here at the old maintenance facility.
This is tied
We want to
into-
abandon that, and we want to get over to here.
Okay, because there's a generator here that you can use to run.
We have two in the compound. This one over here is very old and starting to have issues with.
Military surplus.
This one here is run by natural gas. It's up
Tie
and
into
running.
that
It's tied into the
Military
maintenance facility.
surplus.
Yeah, it was enacted by Lincoln
If,
I think so.
during the Civil
Because
War.
you have to get your crank.
And if you did get the key, like a swipe system, do you know if that would be compatible with like what you have for a computer now?
It wouldn't be a direct tie into my computer necessarily, but whatever we get is going to be what we need.
Yeah, and if we put the IT person on, they'll work on that project to make sure that whatever system is purchased, technology-wise, will integrate with our existing system.
Okay? The next item I show is refurbishing our heavy equipment. I have a request in here for $25,000. Like I say, level funded budgets over all these years, expensive heavy equipment, which I've achieved mostly, in fact, all of our heavy equipment has been purchased through grants. So the town hasn't forked up the money directly on the purchases to that, but extremely expensive to maintain, to keep up, and our expense budget has not gone up in vehicle maintenance to allow for this. Now, the ones I'm talking about, again, I took only a single picture to show you, but one of the ones in particular is our heavy front-end loader, one of our front-end loaders. Looks pretty decent from a distance, but I took a few up-close shots, and you'll notice that the battery box is worn out, the toolbox is worn out, the doors are given out. These are in the salt and in the
Yeah.
weather conditions all the time. It's a $120,000 piece of equipment right now. So to keep it running another, 5 years in the heavy use that we use it for, I think this would be money well spent. And I could also use it on a couple of the other pieces that we have that I didn't take pictures of, but are of equal age and equal use. We have a backhoe, we have 2 front-end loaders, we have a couple of Bobcats, and I need some money to take care of these. You go to get a new tire on your car nowadays, it's $100. These ones are $1,000. So it's kind of tough.
So Ken, the 25,000 that's here would cover the refurbishment on more than just that?
More than just one. I would leave it up to my assistant Jack to evaluate and determine actually what would be the priorities, but that front-end loader right there is a high priority in the department.
would you guys be able to do that work yourself?
We would do much of it ourselves, yes. It would, primarily, the money would be for purchase of pieces, parts, if we needed to buy a door frame, or if we needed to buy a battery box, and our mechanics would put it on, that kind of a thing. There may be some other things that could come up, because we also need to look at our center pins, our bushings, everything that goes along with it.
The stuff that's hidden inside.
Yeah. That's a heavy use machine. It's out on basically every day. I know you've been asking other departments, what's a priority in the plan? That's a tough question. When you have, items that are $100,000, or you have items that are $20,000, and some of them are shared and are a problem for everybody, whereas this is more of a localized problem for me. Very important. I need that money. So that's a priority to me. The gas pumps, well, if they shut down tomorrow, we're going to go to the gas station down the street. We need to fix it, and we should fix it, and we have environmental concerns and things that we need to be concerned about, but everything on the plan's a priority, it wouldn't be on there. That's why there's only 6 things out of so many. The next thing, if we're done with that,
Anyone have any questions on that?
No.
Oh, very clear.
anyone that's been on the board has heard me every year talk about the sidewalk equipment. We have very antiquated sidewalk equipment. Here's one piece that we actually used last year. It was in retirement. It's still in retirement. But we brought that out last year when we couldn't get around. We could not get the sidewalks done. We got buried. We had a sidewalk policy that factored into it. We got buried. And then it got so heavy and so frozen so fast that we couldn't do anything with it.
So much.
And
It was insane last year.
I mentioned right before I started that I was able to achieve one piece of equipment that's going to help us in this area. I brought a picture of it. I'm looking to achieve another piece just like this. We did that through a grant through the Chapter 90 program. We were able to get it accepted through the state. This also is versatile. It can carry basically anything a Bobcat can carry, but it carries a snow blower, and we're able to do the walks with it. But it does take 3 to 4 machines, to get the walks out and open and ready for school, and I don't have it.
You have one that really is reliable.
That one there is the one that's the most reliable. We do have 2 holders that are not so reliable anymore. They both need center pins. I'm afraid for safety, I'm afraid for other issues that could happen out there, and they're very expensive. Those holder machines are $130,000. I have $70,000 in for this one, and that would include every attachment that it needs.
There's no doors and no heat, right?
So can I just, wait,
There's no heater and no doors.
That's correct.
so is that the front like this?
It's a different machine.
Okay.
That's a
It's
bolt,
apples
those
and
are on
oranges.
tracks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's,
This is like a mini front end loader
Okay.
that carries attachments.
that also has a snow
That
blower
you can
attachment.
take off, you can put,
Other
I can
attachments on
carry
it.
forks.
This
I
can
carry
do what that
bucket, I carry
does.
a
Right,
Snow blower,
on
a
the-
lawnmower,
yeah.
a lot of things.
And it can also be used in the summer. Those can only be
Used
used
in
in the
the
winter.
winter.
And the difference there is you're spending $70,000 on something you can use only in the
Right.
winter, or you spend X number of dollars on a versatile piece of equipment that can be used in the
Yeah, right.
springtime, the summertime. You can put a brush on it to sweep the
There's a lot of
sidewalks.
attachments you can put on. Right.
You can put all of those attachments on, and now you use it throughout the year. So it's better to spend that kind of money and get a greater
do you have those
utility of
attachments,
use.
Ken, or does
I
it
do
come
have
with
some.
it, or?
I do have some, but I would
Purchase other ones?
I would outfit the new machine as well, yeah, because you want to have simultaneous use.
And that's the $70,000.
Now, the other machines that I had previously, now, again, these were going to be funded by Lennar, but there's been a change in that practice.
Well, we didn't
policy.
get the money up front from Warrant.
So, we went this route because we really were desperate for a machine. And we witnessed this one in use last year in the town of Pembroke. They have a couple of them, and it works pretty well. So that kind of led us to it as well. So I'm looking for it in the plan. You were considering possibly another way of funding it if
You want me to-
necessary.
You want me to address it? Yeah. I think, if we have another similar winter, or a winter hopefully not as bad as this past winter, I would recommend that we purchase it through snow and ice money. Now, it takes a huge hit on that number. We would end up with a deficit We anticipate we may have a deficit anyway. We're nowhere near the number that we need, but we need the equipment, and we have no other way of getting it. So we may end up making that decision from an operational perspective, because if we fall behind on our sidewalks, which we are going to because we only have one usable piece of equipment, we can't allow that to happen.
And I need to see if there's lead time in ordering,
Yeah.
to physically get one,
Yeah.
So you would put that in the budget?
as a last resort.
Like in,
Yeah, last
Ken
resort
put
would
it
be
in his
using
budget
Chapter 70 money.
under,
Chapter,
Snow budget.
snow budget money, I'm sorry.
and then we,
The snow budget's the only account that can be spent into the
Right.
deficit. So he's proposing as a last resort, if we were unable to achieve funding in any other way, and we felt that we were desperate for the equipment and we had to have it in order to get the sidewalks done, that he would entertain purchasing it through the snow budget and running a deficit.
And that's how we did part of it last year. I think, didn't we use snow budget for?
Not for an equipment purchase, no.
Not for that equipment purchase?
No, it was Chapter 90.
Oh, that was
That's the
Chapter
railroad
90.
program,
Okay.
correct.
And how much did we put in the snow thing, 80,000?
Correct, 100 this year.
100 this year.
100,000?
It was lifted for the first time. Okay. The next piece in here is $20,000. It's kind of a piggyback to the upgrade that's being looked at by the other emergency departments for radio communications in the vehicle fleet. Currently, we're not able to talk very well. We recently had an emergency with that tropical storm, and we opened up our emergency operations control center for the first time. And I sat in the center, and I was the lead for the highway, fielding the calls between police for highway, and I'm shouting out to my crew, and I was speaking directly with my assistant. But I was doing that through Next Up, because we don't have the ability to maintain a consistent communication through the trucks. He could be right next to me, I might not hear him. He could be across town, I might hear him perfectly, or I might not hear him. And it's no good when you got single trucks now. We don't have two men in a truck sometimes. We have one guy out, he could even be running a chainsaw. It's not a good idea to have somebody out without being able to communicate back and forth. So I put a number in here that would represent a repeater, which would probably be mounted, I believe, at the police station on their new tower. And some concert equipment that would work with what they're using to upgrade this time, so we could communicate together. So we figured that was a good number. I kind of weighed on some information from vehicle maintenance and from the police.
No, are they also gonna get portable radios with the guys outside the truck or
My first concern is the trucks,
trucks?
and I think it's a good idea to have some portables, yes.
Yeah,
We did have a portable in the station when we were open with the
Right.
DOC, and that was helpful. It would be more helpful if everything was working through a
Yes.
repeater.
Conjunction.
So,
Any questions about that, guys?
The road program, we've kind of discussed a little bit. We do fund $300,000 for the Chapter 90 program at the discretion of the department, the town manager, and then approval by the state on an annual basis, if funded annually. And that can
Right.
always be pulled too, and it has been at different times. Other times it's been supplemented with additional monies. So it's flexible, but we put in the annual average currently. Like I said, it appears as though quite a bit of our spending is going to be on Route 139 next year. Because it's just gotten to that point, it's such heavy traffic use. We were concentrating before on north-south corridors, Route 58, Washington Street. Route 18 had been done not too long before that when we went into Boston. And Hancock Street is recently done. So our north-south corridors are in pretty good shape. The other ones are partially owned by the state and partially owned by the town, so they're a little different process. We were able to get part of 123 taken care of by the state several years ago now, it seems like yesterday, and now 139 is an issue. So
And is that also under state and our control?
it's under our control,
Which
which is why it would be our funding, yeah. You can apply to get on a TIP program, Transportation Improvement Program. It's about a 7 to 10 year process, and then by the time you get to it, your estimates are no good.
Yes.
Then they want to take your Chapter 90 money to supplement what you underfunded. They want complete engineering done, paid for from your Chapter 90 money, which would eat all that up before I ever...
Before anything gets done,
So I take this and I put it to work.
yeah.
And that's what I've been doing since I've been here.
I'm sorry, Rick, did you have a question?
Where would that be from? 58 and 139 all the way to the Holbrook line?
Good question, but it's going to be what we can afford, and I think the worst section currently is at the other end.
The other end, okay.
Coming this way,
From Rockland.
Yeah, down
From
around,
Rockland.
yeah.
down around the
And
old.
even Old Randolph and Pickett area is real bad. So
Okay.
I have to kind of see how the winter fares and what kind of money we have exactly to work with and how far I can stretch it.
And the worse the winters get, the
With my
worse
4
that-
guys.
And the little Indian.
Yeah. So the next item is floor drains. Recently, we had Environmental Partners Group, an engineering firm, evaluate our floor drains at the Highway Department because we're in violation primarily of the Stormwater Act, because we had connection directly into storm drains which dump and outfall into the pond across the street from the highway garage. Some of you have been down there and toured the facility and have seen that I've capped a couple of them, which was good, and it helped us in this evaluation that was just done. But the report came back in, and we need to address the issue. We cannot be dumping the soils from the highway garage, which can be truck drippings and things like that, into the drain, which goes into the pond. And it's been being done since the place was built. So we cleaned the drains, we've removed the sludge and oils and whatnot that were in the drains with a $20,000 funding article that we achieved last year.
You're going to use about 8 of it to engineer the $40,000 fix, is that correct?
That's correct. We used 12 of it for what I just mentioned. We were evaluating the problem. Now we're going to design the fix with the 8,000 that's left from the money we've already allocated. This money here is for actual construction. We're going to have to tie the drains, interior drains in the garage together, bring them out to a tight tank out in
Oil separator.
MDC trap separator. The sewer department's working with us on that. We're just waiting for approval from the plumbing inspector when I can get a hold of him. We'll go forward with design, but this must be done because we're going
And
to...
does that go under the street, Kenan, or where does that tank?
It does. It
It's
currently
underground.
goes under the street,
You're
and
gonna keep it.
it's going to continue to go under the street. However, it's going to be modified with the new series of tanks and with these MDC traps, which oil water separators don't allow the oil into the stream and the brooks.
And that's going to help us with our other huge issue, which is where, what we're depositing into our bodies of water,
It's an indication of the floor drain and where it goes outside and from there, if they want to look at it.
And when we look at our drainage discharge areas into our lakes and streams, this is going to be a very high priority to fix.
And it's actually already under financial penalty by the DEP if you're in violation of this with the Stormwater Act and our permit. I'm sorry. I just said we're currently in violation already of the Stormwater Act with the DEP with our practices the way they stand. So we need to address this, so we're going to be subject to fines, and they are doling out fines now.
Have we already been fined, or it's just like a...
We have not been fined yet.
Okay.
We're close. I mean, I think we headed them off at our last report that we had written, but we're going to have to map out all of our drainage areas and our secondary drainage areas from our roads
And keep in mind that our evaluation that we just had done, there's an obligation on their part to report to the DEP their findings. So now DEP has it in front of them that there's an action necessary and we must comply.
So you need to show that there's an action plan to address it.
Correct.
And correct it.
That's right. And that's being developed with the $8,000 that we've already got left over from the 20 that we allocated last year for this problem. So the development of the remediation is being done with that money, and this is to fund the fix, the construction. And that's it.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or anything for Kenan? Well, thank you, Kenan, that was really good.
All that. Okay, you'll have a better copy that one. Okay?
she'll give me a
Right.
copy. Thank you, Kenny.
Okay, yes.
Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks for your
Thank you,
information,
Kenan.
as always.
We'll have 2 department heads in front of us.
I know, I almost went.
All right, excellent.
Pass out the warrant that we have right now. That's a good idea. Well, I don't know if we really want to go over the warrant in any kind of detail tonight. We'll briefly go over it, but rest assured that we're not going to have enough money to fund everything here. And so articles are going to be removed or passed over. Now, the board voted Monday night to place them on the warrant until additional information is available. So some of you picked up, I know you did this today, picked up a copy of what we had at that point in time. It is now changed. We're going to start stamping these, date stamp them, time and date, so we know where we stand after this. This is the first one.
And for those, just for those of us, when we go through this, this is obviously a draft warrant, because we have some new folks on here. As the Finance Committee, we're supposed to provide recommendations on the warrant articles. It has to be mailed out 14 days prior to this.
It has to be in the
It has
hands
to
of
be in their
people
hands.
14 days, so
Right.
we figure 17 days before town meeting, which,
Do we have a time frame on what that backs us into as far as like having our recommendations to your office so that it can be printed on the warrant? And we back up somewhere around October.
I don't have my calendar with
No, I'm
me.
saying today's the 28th, and then we're meeting, I think, whatever next Wednesdays, which
Wednesday's
would be
the
the 5th, and then 7 more, what's that give us, like the 12th?
Yeah. I think you
That-
have to have, your recommendations have to be published 10 days before
Right,
our
we,
meeting, on what you're...
they have to be on a website or something, but we've
Right.
always gone back and forth about
The 14th.
putting at least something on the, on some sort of
And I-
recommendation, even
yeah.
if it's that at that time we didn't have enough information and we will
Right.
post a
And
recommendation.
I have to write up
Your,
what the explanation
Right.
of yes vote, no vote, what that will do.
so I guess my point of this is, at some point, we do have to get deeply into the warrant and be secure so that we can at least make some sort of recommendations, or a recommendation might be that we can't make a recommendation at this time, but we will have something before town.
Or you need additional information. We've heard from the superintendent, we've heard from 4 departments, and everyone has a very good argument as to why we need what we need. And now the reality sets in, because I'm going to pass out to you the free cash calculation, how we have broken that out, how we arrived at it. Now, I spent some time with you on this before, so some of this information will be old, but we now have the calculation as it relates to how much we want to put into stabilization and how much we want to commit to capital. Okay? So.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I'll walk you through this sheet because this becomes the reality grounded sheet. This is what we have to spend at the end of the day, and we need to determine how best we're going to spend those dollars as it relates to the capital plans. And we have some recommendations now, but I am hesitant to provide them to you because they are going to change. So why give you something that's going to change at this point? These documents, at least at this point, give us an idea as to where we are. We went over in a prior meeting where we stood as far as our total free cash number, which is $1,589,000 right at the top of the page. We have overdrawn accounts and deficits. We went through that of 522. We had some receipts that we received, 60-day receipts of 134,000 that's added back in. And then we have the 199,000, which are the provisions for abatements and exemptions. You'll see that broken out in years as to where we are with outstanding exemptions or abatements in cases that are pending before the courts at this point. Our chapter, we received PWID money of 98,000 and chapter 90 money of 35,000 for a total of 134. That ties into the top number under receipts for 60 days. You can see where our fund accounts were either overdrawn or, and most of this, and it really deals with grant monies that had to be expended before we could submit them, and we didn't get them back in time to close out the fiscal year. So we will have those monies will carry over into FY 13. No, this is June 30th, 2011.
Oh, that's right, this
so
is
it'd be
coming in
12.
this year.
Yes,
2012.
we have them now, and it'll close out our year for 12. So, let's go down to where we are. Now, the last portion of this, free cash number is $1,001,306. L&R earmark, we backed that number out as we said we would. Gives us $715,306, which is our real true cash, our free cash number. We propose to take 60% of that money and put it into stabilization. And we have a capital amount of 40%, which is $286,122.40. It just so happens that the back out of the L&R money is now coming back in. That is part of the capital expenditure. So the total amount that we have available for FY 12 capital is $572,122.40.
That's everything. That's
Excuse me.
everything?
Yeah, everything.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, I mean, I have to advise you that we could take a smaller number for stabilization. Would never recommend that. I mean, there's ways in which we can work this in a couple of different scenarios. If we have approximately 220 to 230,000 in stabilization right now. We add the 429, that gives us close to $700,000.
What was that current, the number in stabilization?
I think it's between 235 and 250, somewhere within that range. And so we add the 429, we're now up to a healthier number for stabilization. We need between 5 to 8% in stabilization, and that number is something that we need to continue to work on. So that's where we stand today. We have options available. We don't have to spend all of the money in capital. We may want to do some more capital in the spring once we have expended a greater portion of our budget, and maybe we can free up some money. We have, as you're going to see in the warrant, if you've had a chance to look at it, I would recommend that you take your high blood pressure pills or any other pills that you need to take before you start reading the warrant, because you're going to see a lot of expenditures that don't have any matches as to where money is going to be made available. And all of these requests are valid. We just can't fund them all. And I am not going to put us in a position where we're increasing our base so significantly that in order for us to make our budget number for the end of the year or for FY13, we're laying people off. I'm not going to do that. It's just simply not going to happen. We had that huge discussion with the Board of Selectmen on Monday about how best to deal with our need for central dispatch, a regional dispatch. We had a couple of proposals. We're working on a resolution to that. And the resolution is going to be that we're not going to increase the base significantly in order to achieve that. But at the same time, we recognize the need for pre-medical arrival instruction. Right now, what happens if a call comes into police, that call is, if it's a medical call, is dumped to fire. In this case, if we use the Holbrook model, for example, and we haven't even decided if that is the model we're going to go with, but let's take that for an example. that Holbrook would cover dispatch services for the fire department. That does absolutely nothing for the police department with respect to, getting his police officers out from the desk, which is an important factor. And that has to be addressed.
And it doesn't fix the mandate either, does it?
It does, it
It
fixes
does.
the mandate.
Fix the mandate.
Because it has to be at least no less than the second level of answer of 911, right? If it goes to
They allow
police-
up to 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is 911 call would come into the police, and if they needed medical, they would switch it over to Holbrook,
That's what,
who would give the,
but when a call comes in now,
yeah,
we switch, it comes into
Right now.
police. Police is the center component.
yes,
It then, if it's a
Routes to
medical,
police.
it falls to fire.
right. Which
I call it downloaded, but it's sent to fire. What's going to happen now, it's from the police department, it's sent to Holbrook. Holbrook dispatches,
And gives pre-arrival instructions.
Correct.
pre-arrival medical instruction. That's correct.
And they'll become the secondary PSAP.
That's correct. And that seems
So
to be.
it
and
It
that's-
does cover that mandate piece
That's
of July
That's
1st
right.
mandate, right.
Now, that prorated, since it's going to take us a while to get up and running, probably January, would be about $50,000 versus the $100,000.
What are the limitations to get us up and running, so to speak, on just the whole business?
Well, there's no limitation as far as Holbrook is concerned. We have to capitalize some equipment. We have to purchase some capital equipment. It's a one-time expenditure to tie into the Holbrook piece.
Okay, just personal grant for a second. I guess why? Not why, just a general why, right? So being a municipality, every municipality gets a certain level of funding from the State 911 Commission. And we get a grant every single year because you folks put in for your grant. Part of that grant does allow for certain levels of reimbursement for capital. And the capital that you're talking about is just the Verizon piece of the 911 trunk. There's no physical machinery. Again, I'm just putting my State 911 Commission hat on, and I ask these questions of communities all the time. What is it you foresee as a capital investment? It's literally a line, you tie it to the trunk. If you already have a trunk come into the police department, it is just simply calling into Taunton, which the State 911 Department's office is going to be, identify where your switch is, and they just hard code it, and there's no capital closure whatsoever. The button program costs you nothing. So that's why I just want to make sure that I understand what capital expenditures are, because it's just from operating 2 PSAPs now and a third coming online in a week, it's literally there's no expense for me, just because it's got to press a button.
It's my understanding, I think when we had,
Microwave
when the
technology.
chief was here, he spoke about a black box or some box that Holbrook needed to.
For the fire alarm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that what it was?
To monitor the
That's
alarm.
different, right.
Totally
Two
different.
different pieces, why I was
Yeah.
asking the question about the state level, because I don't want to blend in two thoughts. The July 1st, 2012 requirement is just simply for emergency medical dispatchers for both pre-arrival and post-dispatch instructions. From my understanding was we were looking to outsource the entire function of fire dispatch.
That's
as
correct.
well as-
That is correct.
So
That
the
is
capital
correct.
that we're talking about isn't related to the July 1 mandate.
It's not, no, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to make sure I was understanding, and that makes better sense, because there is now some infrastructure requirements and enhancements that we have to do to make Holbrook ready to be able to manage our
Call
box
volume.
alarms and all the stuff that we have to learn. That makes perfect sense.
And that's where that capital piece comes
That
in.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, there's also software that he has to get, that Holbrook has and the police department has, but he doesn't have. In order to log the calls and do all that stuff. IMC, Information Management Corporation. Yeah.
And we were in their sight line, I remember him saying that we were in the sight line for the microwave technology, because then you had commented, we can't get it in our own town from one end to the other,
Right.
but we can go all the way to Holbrook.
Well, I found out what the issue was. The police department's antenna is on the water tank, and the fire antenna is on the North Quincy Tower, which is higher and would allow that
A
direct
sight.
line for the microwave technology that we need.
Right.
We could conceivably put the police department antenna, and microwave that antenna. If there's the ability to do essential dispatch through Holbrook for both police and fire, but we're nowhere near there. We have a number of different layers of investigation to achieve here, and one of them is, this is a temporary fix, as we had discussed. We received some communications from Kevin Donovan, who, member of the board, who said that, you know, maybe to satisfy our pre-arrival medical instruction, we can contract that out with a third-party provider, and we pay by the call for that. And that may be an approach. However, it doesn't help with respect to emptying the station, and it doesn't help with having a backup for the fire when they leave. The station is empty. They can't monitor the alarms. A call comes in. What would the chief tell you? It goes on. It's not answered.
There's an alarm to no one.
Yeah.
Well, it's somewhere, but no one's.
No one's there to get it.
Right.
And that's the problem. So, we have a lot of investigation to go through, but we have a town meeting coming up. We have pre-arrival medical instruction to address. It appears that we can do that on a temporary basis with Holbrook for very short money, which may be an option for us to pursue short-term as we develop a more long-term solution.
So right now, if we went to Holbrook, it takes care of the alarm, right? Through microwave, and then it takes care of the pre-arrival instruction.
Yeah, and it backs up the fire department when they empty out.
Right.
Because they take all the costs. And if there's a firebox or an alarm that's coming in, it's monitored through Holbrook.
Yeah.
And what also happens is that when the station empties out, now police has to take that call. Has to take those calls. They will not have to do that. And so that relieves some of that burden, you know, from the police department. So is it the best of both worlds? No. But is it a logical progression step to take at this point? You know, I think it may be, but, you know, that's something we're going to have further discussion about as we work through this process.
And you'll obviously be having those conversations with the three, maybe four
absolutely,
parties
yeah.
involved.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, how do you want to spend the $572,000? We're rich today. But, you know, again, it's, you know, it's
We've only got
something-
offers for
Yeah.
$1 million.
Yeah, no, we only have several $1 million and,
People want of potential uses for that money.
yeah.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Sure.
I'm just thinking maybe, just because this is kind of the first we're all getting the draft warrant, maybe if we have an opportunity to look over it.
If you want to send me an email and say, hey, what does this mean? What is this all about? You have my email, you know how to get a hold of me. I will answer every single question that is posed to me on the warrant at this point that I can answer. I just have to let you know that next week, my son is getting married at the Pinehurst Country Club in North Carolina, so I will be leaving this great land for southern exposure on Tuesday morning at 6 o'clock. And I will not be returning until after Columbus Day. So I'll be away. So next Wednesday, I am
You're
not
not here
going to
next
be here.
Wednesday.
But I will make arrangements to have presentations from committees that you, board, departments you want me to have
Okay.
here. And I'll make sure that Dory or somebody is here
Okay.
to help you through that process.
So would maybe Dory be here if we had, if we were going to look at the warrant next week
Yeah.
also?
Yeah, yeah. But again, if you have questions about the
In the-
warrant, you
right.
can call me, you can email me or call me.
So the suggestion on the table right now is that we have an opportunity to take this away, read it, put together our questions,
Yeah.
email them to John, which we would just be asking questions, and
Yeah,
then
and I
we
can-
could discuss it again next Wednesday. Is that
That's what
the
I would
suggestion?
suggest.
Right, and if you have any issues about, you know, is this the way we should do this, what did council say? I will get those responses through, email. I'll be available through email.
And we'll just caution each other that we won't discuss or anything via email, it'll just be the transaction of data.
Yeah.
No reply all.
Right, when you send me a question, send it to me, and I will get a response, but I don't want you
It should
to
be a backup.
send it out to
Right.
all of the,
It should just go to you, because
Just
then
go to you.
if it goes
Yeah.
to the board, then we're violating the open meeting.
Okay. We can work
if
that-
you
we can-
start deliberating.
Yeah,
Well,
I think the question can have us all on it, and the answer can have us all on it, but we can't then further
You
discuss.
can't then have crosstalk. You can't say, well, what do you think of
that's
this?
all
What do you
right.
think of
Right.
that? How about this? How about that?
Again, it's just data, it's
Right.
just information dissemination, but we're not going to be doing any deliberating
Yeah,
or
there's no,
opining
cannot have
or
any
anything.
deliberation on it at all. It has to occur openly, so people understand how you arrived at your decision.
And that's, I would just caution us in that regard. No problem asking John questions, he will provide responses. We will then talk about it next Wednesday when we meet, even without John. Cindy, go
I
ahead.
do have one question right up front. On Article 3A, I know the other day in the selectmen's meeting, they were asking for a breakdown of the 65,364.82. Have you been able to put that together yet, or will we have that next Wednesday?
Yeah, well,
Or
you
we
could have it
to
by the
ahead
end, you could have it by the end of the week, actually, because
That would be good.
it's pretty, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
you know.
I'd just like to
What
see
we're
it.
proposing, what I am proposing at this point is a 2%, for the majority of non-union people. And there's some salary adjustments, which you'll see in the spreadsheet, to get people. Now, I have to tell you, it's really frustrating in some respects, but, it is what it is. We had a very strong, absolutely great candidate for IT that we wanted to bring on board, and even though the job market is so poor out there, you would think that you would get a number of people. We did not have a lot of responses, from people, and we brought this guy up from Florida. He paid his way up and everything. We're too cheap, but we brought him up, and he was really a candidate that we wanted, and we had between 57 and 62,000 that we could afford to pay him. That's what we could afford. And he dragged us along for a while, and then said, it's just not enough money for me. So this is going to be a very difficult position to fill based on the monies that we have available, but it is what it is, and we need somebody who can do everything. And that kind of scared this candidate away, even though he could do everything and was very good. We just, in the end, he said no. And you would figure in a job market of this nature, the people would just
Did you
take
have,
it.
as an example, did you have
And
more
he
than
lives in
one
Colebrook.
candidate? Did you have more than one candidate for that?
Yeah, so we're going to go to our second
Yeah.
and third candidates now, so I think that it's going to work out for us, hopefully. The second candidate is a little scary in the sense that he is so qualified that, in a year, he may leave. And do we really want to find ourselves in a position where, we're hiring somebody, we're humming along, everything's going well, and all of a sudden, at the end of the year, he's gone, because that may conceivably happen as well. But so, we'll do the best we can with what we have.
John, with regard, you said that there would be a spreadsheet for Article 3A?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you said it's 2% increase for non-union employees,
That's
some,
correct.
or
And
something
then
like that?
there are 4 positions that require salary adjustments that we're making.
The existing positions?
Existing positions.
Okay, 4 existing positions with salary adjustments.
I think it's 4, yeah. Well, you'll see it in the spreadsheet, it's broken
Yeah.
up. It's a very easy spreadsheet to follow.
And you think we'll have that by the end of the week, you said? That's-
Well, I'll have it emailed to the board. The board
Okay.
asked for the same information, so, yeah. I'll send it out to you as well.
Anything else that anybody wants to bring up without having had opportunity to really review this in detail? something's got taken off, I know, from the last version that we had. So this is the most.
We also,
recent up to date.
we're gonna have to take off the
Strawberry
selling
Valley
of the
thing.
Strawberry Valley house.
Yeah, you said that.
Because
Legislation.
we have to get enabling legislation that would give us, grant us permission to sell the house. And the reason why we want to do that is that we have a lot of capital items coming up in our 5-year plan that could go to Strawberry Valley for the purpose of financing some of those capital expenditures.
Everything takes an act of legislation.
Act of God.
You know.
Real quickly, I'm sorry, did you have, go ahead, whoever was up first.
You can go, okay?
On the Tri-centennial article, Article 7,
I was gonna go there too.
fire details is only 2,500.
That's correct.
2,500 or 5,000? So it's 2,500 here, is that
Okay.
right? Oh, okay.
I just want to make sure.
Well, see, there's only one, the fire isn't going to be involved in the parade detail.
Oh, okay. Oh, just.
Yeah, that's just for the fireworks. Yes.
I'm gonna ask about that same article. Now, the Tri-centennial is 2003, when
12.
is this?
2012.
Is gonna be our parade and all the
June
blah.
12th of next year-ish.
Okay. All right, I just thought that this was, I was just looking at it and I didn't know if it was just a little early on, but to be asking for this, isn't it a little early? Shouldn't we be asking it maybe for the, I mean, they're doing all kinds of fundraising now, so shouldn't we be waiting and see how much they actually raise before we go out on a limb and possibly take out of revenue $72,000?
Well, one of the thoughts that we had with this, and one of the things that I think we're committed to is, this could be really, part of the capital plan if we decide to shove it in that corner, because we're spending money on something that happens once, every 100 years, basically.
It does, it happens every once in a while, but if they have another, however long that they're raising funds, and we have more fundraisers coming up, and they have a plan out there, so they have a silver plan, a gold plan, a this plan, and that plan, and if we go along and say that we're going to tuck away this amount of money, and they happen to come up with quite a bit, what happens to all of this then that we could possibly be using for something else in the meantime that may be more important to the town as a whole, rather than a one-shooting match to throw up some fireworks that probably half the town could, I'll be out there and say it, probably half the town could care less. But it's all town's money going to this one or two Abington celebration things.
Let's say they raise, let's say that 50,000 number also includes details, so there's a double accounting of the detail piece.
Yeah, they've broken it down right now to 72,500, which is fireworks display and parade 50, police detail 20, and the fire detail 25. So like I said, my question right now is, if this seems a little premature, and it seems like an awful lot of money to be asking for, until they come up with what their final monies that they're going to be raised, what they're going to raise. And if they do need a little bit of extra or something, then let's look at it and say, well, we can give you then maybe 20,000 to make up what you're looking for. But to go out on a limb now and say that we can raise and appropriate, which to me, I guess, comes from our taxes and excise taxes. I'm just speaking as one person here for the town, but I think that my $72,500 worth of taxes could be used for something a little bit more appropriate in the town. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do something, but I think that we need to kind of relook at this and think that maybe we should be looking at it closer toward the Tri-centennial celebrations once they finish doing what they're trying to do as far as raising funds. That's just my opinion, one of 8.
There's obviously a couple of ways we could treat this, but let me just say where I think the town is committed and see if that makes sense. The Tri-centennial plans to raise $15,000 for fireworks. That's what they plan to raise. We committed to matching that number up to a certain amount, and that's where they come up with 15, we appropriate 15.
15?
15, 1-5.
Okay.
So the 50,000 was put in there by the moderator at the request of the Tri-centennial to reserve an amount of money. Does it have to be that amount? No. if it's 15 for the fireworks that we're matching and they raise 15, then that's probably a lot more palatable maybe than, 50. And we have always committed to, paying for the details for the police and for fire. And those are the only two things that we're actually committing to. And that's something and so that number is appearing in the warrant as a large number, but I wouldn't take that to the bank as saying that that's what they need. I think that number can be and will be reduced before town meeting to what we had committed to and what I think we can afford. That's where we are.
So based on the 50, if they raise 15 and we provide a match plus a 20,000 plus a 2,500, we're really along the lines of, so somewhere between 37,000 and the 72 that's on here.
Yeah, the 72 is a large, very large number. I agree
Yeah, I'm
with you.
looking at this, I'm like, that's just craziness,
Yeah.
absolute craziness.
Yeah. Well, and then the other piece that you have to balance this with is that, we don't want to be, we, the town, does not want to be in a position of funding this entire effort, because then you're not going to get any community input, community support.
And that's
People
what
are
if-
going to start saying, well, you're getting the money for the town. All the town is committing to is helping with the firework display and paying for the details.
Right, so-
That's it.
Do you foresee then these figures are going to change in the final warrant?
Oh, I
It's not
think
going to
so.
go out looking like this?
In the actual warrant or
Well, then, if
Or
it-
at town meeting.
or at town meeting?
Or a town meeting, definitely town meeting. Definitely town meeting. Again, I'm gonna have to have a discussion with Frank in the committee, because, I have always said, and very consistently have said, we'll help with the fireworks and we'll help with we'll pay the details. I think that we should be doing that, because that is something that is a town service, and this is a town. We should be doing that. I just think that I feel strongly about that as far as details are concerned. And fireworks. Beyond that, it's a different, issue. Well,
Rick,
there's Mike.
Rick, go ahead.
John, has anybody, they used to have a 4th of July committee, and I know they still had money in their fund. Has anybody contacted that director and to see if maybe he'd,
I don't, I wish I knew who it was, and I know it was a private committee, and here again is the issue with a private committee.
yeah?
The money isn't turned over to the town, so we can't use it for,
No, but I'm just
other
wondering if somebody-
public purposes.
Whether or not somebody had called him and ran it by him.
I don't know who it is. He could be in the Reno, Nevada.
All right, no problem.
We'll have
We're not
Mary-
suggesting that
we'll
that's
have-
what's happening.
No, we'll have Mary Jo go looking for him. Yeah, sure.
But that's, Rick's got a good idea that
Yeah.
if someone could reach out to that person, if they know who that was, run it by them. And-
Maybe I'll
what-
volunteer to do that.
And what John's saying is
The
that
town.
obviously it is a celebration of the town, so the town should,
We have
contribute
plenty
to
of
that.
something,
Right.
absolutely.
Right. And so,
Yeah, but we don't have to ride a stallion. We could probably ride a
Yeah, I
donkey.
think that we could, yeah, I'm thinking,
Right,
I've got it
something.
from, a donkey would be much better
Yeah.
than
Sean?
what this is.
It's a segue, by the way, because I am an ass, not a donkey necessarily, so I appreciate that segue. Notwithstanding
That's all right.
notwithstanding anything we just talked about, I agree with the sentiment that $72,000 is a large number, and it's going to generate a certain degree of ire, and I appreciate the improvements that they will find, at least to what the town's commitments need to be, and however the language may potentially need to be slightly changed, but not change the intention procedurally. Right, so the only other opportunities you create funding for this would be at the special before the annual, if action is not taken today. So if the funds are being
That's-
is that correct?
That is
So
correct.
given that we have a history of running annuals later in the year, we try to do special early, there's no commitment.
There's no,
guarantees.
right, we may not make the firework display if they're doing it in June.
Right, because that generally runs in April, so we
Yeah.
would, well, it generally is scheduled for April. When we actually have it is usually sometime after we have the celebration.
It's more so a process, because I think it's.
Yeah, because it's tied, see, it's tied to the annual. So we're really, you know, we're clearing up these little bills, so to speak, but we're preparing for the annual, and at that point, we're looking for free cash numbers,
Yeah.
we're looking for all of that, and we put all the financial articles off until mid-June.
But just to state the import, to kind of continue with this question, I think this is the point. To state the import, then it really just becomes time for this group looking at Article 7 to say, do we have comfort with this number? If the intent of the Tri-centennial Committee, based on its own little charters created through the Board of Selectmen, et cetera, is to do some fundraising to offset a certain portion of the cost, and the town indeed has committed to a maximum number, we will contribute a portion of the cost of the fireworks display up to a certain number.
And we have.
Then I think that just comes down to, frankly, the presentation of what this article is. And then refining, frankly, where the dollars are going to go. Because if the town's already essentially, by virtue of word, committed, then we just have to kind of be able to pay for it. And if that commitment's already been done, I suppose grand, but, you know, two of these, the number seems to be larger.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, it is, and that number, that was not my number.
Oh, no,
But-
I'm not beating you up, John.
Right, yes, I
It's just
understand.
more a statement of,
Right.
that's all.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of
That
brings...
was a good version of sticker shock.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point that Cindy brings up, and coupled with Sean's, as far as being able to, having the opportunity to fund whatever the right amount of number is. It's kind of like something that we really should be looking at, doing the right number at this town
At
meeting.
this time, right.
Because the April town meeting could be very much too late.
I will volunteer to contact that individual.
Well,
Thank you.
you know, it may not be a bad idea to bring Frank Janowitz and some members of the Tri-centennial in, you know, to basically give the committee an update. You know, what have we raised, where are we, and, you know, what do we expect, what are their expectations? And, you know, we can actually tell you what we've committed. I told you tonight what we committed to, and, you know, Mike is here, so he, you know, he can verify that. You know, we've up to 15,000, you know, we'd match, they've raised 15, we'd give them 15, that's a $30,000 fireworks show. We decided that we're gonna pay for all of the details because it's a town function. It happens once every 300 years. Maybe, I think Rick might be around for the next 300, but.
No, I don't think so. No way.
Yeah.
You got that financial report.
I don't know, do you want it?
Do you guys, yeah, if you want to give us a taste? Or do you want to come back next week?
I won't be, up until tonight, that's, our income is 23,000.
Just for the camera, Mike Franny's here, representing the
We
Tri-centennial.
just finished the
He
tri-centennial.
you-
is the board
Liaison.
representative.
Board of
He's
Selectmen.
not even a voting member.
Nope.
He's not considered a townie.
But so far, they've raised $23,000 roughly,
23,000?
yeah. But they have the activities. We had a trivia night, we had a sale of t-shirts, a road race, a golf tournament. They sold commemorative items, and then celebrate Abington Day.
They had some
So
expenses.
they raised $39,000 there, and then they took out the expenses for fundraising. They had some expenses for dinner dance, they've already started with the booklets and stuff. Golf tournament, road race expenses, t-shirt. and
Mailings.
Trivia night and some mailings. So they expended $14,000. I'll give this to you for your records anyways, and so that's about it. So they were, and I did talk about the money for the fall town meeting.
Yeah.
The three articles. I was, in the discussion we had on the board the other night, I thought they were going to encompass all three, or more or less. I thought the 50,000, but I mean, that could have been my opinion. But, I don't know where you were with that.
It looks like they've wrapped the three articles as far as the two details and the fire display.
As I recall, there was a talk about how that money was going to be handled, and ultimately was going to be put into a fund for the Tri-centennial that could be turned over to the town after 9 months, but it was to take those three articles as one.
Right.
And I actually, in my honest opinion, I thought the article that the Tri-centennial put in was an attempt to cover some of those details, but that was my
Oh, okay.
opinion. I could be wrong.
So you're thinking the
And
50 may have encompassed the
That's my
20.
opinion, and I could be wrong on that. I don't know how you felt on it.
Well, you know, I can say that, you know, safely say that in every meeting that I have been to, the town committed to matching
Right.
dollar for dollar up to a certain amount for fireworks, and that the town was gonna pay the detail fees.
Right, that's right.
And so
Yeah, but,
that's,
and it may have, when the 50,000 came in, it may have been taking into account some of those details, is what I think. you're
and like I
saying. So-
said, there might be a double accounting here, and part of that 50 may also include the, you know,
The
details.
20.
It's
So-
it's a tough, it's a moving target. It's tough to, you know, it's obviously it's going to depend, looking forward on the type of weather we're having and stuff like that, because you could reach a situation where one of them got canceled or rained out, you didn't need all the details. And then I think that was part of the discussion we had too.
Do you think, Mike, in the next week or so, before this is finalized, that we might get a revised number there?
Oh, absolutely, and I think Mr. Jenowitz and whoever from the committee would be happy to come. And, you know, they're looking for a little bit of publicity, and it might help out. They've done a lot of work, and
Yeah,
going
they
forward,
have,
I
they've done
think,
good work.
I think, you know, starting in especially in January after Christmas, I think the momentum's going to pick up, and I think it's going to be, we had a couple of individuals come in there, they're going to do a Civil War enactment, and they were wearing the uniforms.
saw
Did
them.
you see them out there?
Yeah,
I mean, it
we
was
did.
fabulous, and I mean, it is going to be something. They're going to do an encampment over the Grove, hopefully, and there's a lot of events, but
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
we're probably, when I say publicity, I know they're hurting for help, and, you know, everybody's busy, but as time goes on, maybe they could help out at one or two of these events and make it quite, it can't miss, it's going to be a success no
Yes.
matter what, but it could be far more successful if we could get a little bit of help going forward.
And, you know, maybe they can do something with the muster fields. That's where they brought the troops together when you were fighting in the Civil War.
Right, and they were talking about having a fundraiser, they were going to shoot him out of a cannon. But if you'd like that, I just
Yeah.
made a
All right.
little note on the bottom, but that, if you want to use that.
All right, Mike, thank you for bringing that, and I
Okay.
think probably what we will do is try to see if we can get somebody to come in and meet with us maybe next
Might give
Wednesday.
that to Debbie.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that'd be
well, I
a
don't know if that's good.
fabulous idea. Well, they'll bring that with them.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just give
There'll be
them.
some talk between now and then, I imagine, about the numbers.
All right, thank you.
Mike, thank you. Thanks for coming in at the drop of a hat. Anything else, anybody want, John, quick, with regard to the Board of Selectmen's meeting, I know that they mentioned, which article is on the last page, about the sales tax?
It's
There's
not
a-
on the last page, that,
Article 15, I
Article
think.
15.
And I don't know if it was Selectman Donovan said maybe we should have a public hearing on
Yes,
that?
yeah.
Is that going to be something in the works before the town meeting?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
A public hearing for what?
I'm sorry, it's Article 15, which is the municipal sales tax? I think,
Yes.
right? The meals tax, right.
Meals tax.
So my comment was that the Board of Selectmen had indicated that there should be a public hearing sometime between now and the town meeting for that. So, thank you. Anything else that anyone wants to bring up this evening for John? Nope. Okay, so we do have the most recent copy of the warrant, which I'll
Yep.
commit to
And-
taking a look at and asking some questions.
And it's my understanding that, you know, all of council's comments have been integrated into
Okay.
that. So
All right.
it's as good as we're going to get at this point. We may be able to refine it some more, but that's where we stand.
Just for the next few minutes, could you speak just briefly about Article 2 with regard to the personnel bylaws? I know that there's a personnel bylaw committee, is there, that's been reviewing this?
No, the Personnel Committee, this was an attempt by the board to kind of like jumpstart the personnel process, the
Right.
Personnel Board process. I want to reinstate the Personnel Board process. The changes that are incorporated in that document blend with the charter changes that the
Okay.
town voted.
Back when we went to a town
when
manager form of business.
government.
Okay.
Where, because if you look at some of the language that we're looking at changing, we're going from executive secretary, we skipped the town administrator, and now
Terminology.
we're trying to make it fit within
do.
the framework of the new charter. The manager in the new charter sets the salary through appropriation for all department heads. So that's what Article 3 is trying to do, rather than...
Two, I think, right?
Article, is it 2?
It's 2,
Yeah.
but there's lots of pages to it.
No, I'm talking
I'm
about,
sorry.
no, when you look at Article 3, Article 3 complies with the charter as it relates to an appropriation that the manager can then fix the salaries, right here, number 3A.
Oh, 3A, okay, I was
3A,
thinking for an
yeah.
actual 3, okay.
Because the charter allows the manager to fix the salaries for all employees that he appoints and the subordinates and so forth. Obviously, I can't do that for unions because unions are, they have a, I know, it's a collective bargaining agreement. So, yes, and so this fits the bylaw. Because the way we used to do it was, and it was, we thought the charter, we thought the bylaw required us to print the names and the salaries. Now that we're taking those salaries and printing them in the budget, and that budget is online, everyone knows what they're making yearly, what they're making hourly, what they're making, you guys know
Yeah, we see
what
that.
they're making, you know, based on the number of hours they're working. So it's more transparent. Now we're moving to the next level, which is the charter requires that the manager set those salary limits based on the amount of the appropriation. So if you appropriate 25,000, that's what we'll fix the salaries at. If we appropriate 50, that's what we fix the salaries at. Or some number. Now, we don't have to do that. We don't have to spend all the money and it will revert to free cash and become part of, you know, our free cash numbers at the end of the fiscal year. But Article 2 is designed to basically try to re-establish the personnel bylaw and the personnel committee in the proper structure based on the charter that we are currently operating under.
So it's kind of like to bring that in compliance with what we're actually doing
Yeah.
now, so
What we should be doing.
what we should. All right, and we'll probably, and I think it may, I don't know if it was Selectman Donovan or Selectman Burbine, one of them brought up that we should write out what it says now and.
Well, you know, for some reason, I can't find an electronic.
That's right, you said you couldn't find an
I
electronic
can't find-
copy of it.
Yeah, I went
anyway.
downstairs, rummaged through all of the files, everything is, you know, pen and paper. So we're gonna have somebody retype it.
I mean, if
and
we
then
had,
make
just
the
because I think there's just so much in it and so much replace this, delete this, that I think people might go, what is this all
Well, you
about? I know I did.
I think we're gonna let it go as it is here, but
Okay.
as a handout for that night, we'll have the
Right, so-
bylaw with all of the changes that we're proposing there so they can read.
Struck, maybe the old one strike out.
Yeah, we'll have a strikeout for the old language and so that they can see what the new language means in the proper context.
All right, thank you. I know I just was, there was an awful lot to read and
Yeah.
just kind of getting lost on it. Thanks. I'm sorry, I sort of like monopolized that conversation. Anyone else have anything to bring up? All right. All right,
Okay.
John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations to your son and
Oh,
good luck
I know,
with all
I
that
can't
next
wait.
week.
Yeah, can't wait.
Okay.
I went out and bought a tux, so maybe I'll
bought
be able to
it?
use.
You know you can rent those, right?
I know, but you look
Maybe
like.
planning to go to a couple weddings, at least down
Well,
there.
I have a 50th anniversary party to go to, which is a black tie 50th on Sunday. Saturday is his wedding, so
You're gonna get some use out of it.
I'll get some use, and I figure the next time I can use it is in the casket, you know, when they bury me.
You can wear it to the
And
Tri-centennial.
Write that down.
I can,
You can have a gala ball for the Tri-centennial.
black
You
tie
could
affair
wear it.
only, yeah.
You should wear it to finance.
Wear it to Martin's in the morning.
The salesman sold me on it by saying it's like wearing a pair of pajamas. I tried it on and it really was. It was like really comfortable. So I might wear it to bed.
There you go.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. All right.
Okay.
All right, other business, guys, so we've covered the school superintendent, we've covered the highway, we've covered a little bit of the warrant, we've covered some of the capital plan. How about liaison reports? Anyone have anything to bring up? Cindy?
I met with Deb Kermit today at the
Can
library.
you grab a microphone? I just want to make sure we can hear you.
I met with Deb Kermit today at the library just to get a feel for things, and she thinks everything is going well. She's very happy with the increases she got in her budget last year, so that's allowed them to open up for additional hours. They started their preschool all their children's programming, and they've added an additional one this year. And we'll start back with the library visits, I think she said grades 1, 3, and 5. And talked about her capital stuff, but she has nothing for this year. She anticipates maybe something next year and then 2 years down the road, so. And she said if she would, if we need her to come in and talk about any of that, she's more than willing.
Great.
So that's it.
It's been a couple years since we had a library tour. I know I went a few years ago. Maybe that might, not something that has to be set up right away or anything, but you might want to run that by her and see if she and Henry are inclined to do that. I thought it was excellent, by the way, when I went on it.
Okay.
And let's see, other things. Did she mention, well, we'll talk to her when she comes in. I was just wondering how things were going with regard to, like, it's not certification, but it is certification library.
She's filling out the forms for that. She doesn't anticipate any problem with it, but she just wants to make sure all her I's are dotted and T's crossed, that they can't say anything was missing, but she doesn't feel that there's going to be any problems.
Thank you. Great, thank you. Anyone else have any liaison reports?
Yeah, we had a TIF committee meeting.
Oh.
TIF committee meeting last night, and Harvey and the lady came in and gave us a presentation.
Okay.
And what it amounts to is they're looking for about a 56% cut in taxes over a 10-year period.
The incremental,
Incremental, yes. Starts at 95%.
over 10
Goes-
years, did you say?
Yeah. And another thing that came up is their land right now is valued almost like a farm agriculture use because of the golf course.
Oh, right.
Once they sign the agreement, it becomes commercially zoned. It increases the value.
Oh, just by virtue of the fact that they signed an agreement to put a
Right.
commercial
So we
building
are,
there?
and he has to satisfy all back taxes and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we have to decide on how much we're gonna give them and how long.
Right,
You know, how much a percentage will be. Well, it will stay at 56% or 25% or what, and then how many years we're gonna do it.
right. So they gave a presentation of what they would like to see?
Yes,
And
and
then
they
you guys have to
also wanna know
negotiate.
if you want them to come before us at the board and do a presentation.
And now, is this something that also has to be done by the town meeting? And I know there's
Well,
there's Article 14 on there.
There's a
but it-
possibility it might not.
Yeah. I don't know if we'd have the details in
Depends on
here
whether or
yet.
not we can reach an agreement.
Right, because the Article 14 that's in there, it probably has some placekeepers where it talks about a 10-year period.
Right.
I don't know if it has a percentage in here, but, so
The
I,
biggest problem is getting the value of that land is commercial land. And that guy, the guy that does that, assists the assessor downstairs, he has to come in and they take all of commercial land around and do all these figures, and then they come up with what that's worth. And then we can base our figures on that.
okay,
So that might not even get done before town meeting.
understood.
It depends. If the guy comes through this week or something, we might have a figure at our next meeting. You know?
What, are you meeting weekly now? Weekly, every Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday, and then we might have a meeting the following Thursday. If we get some figures,
And you
we'll
can
discuss
move
it
on.
Tuesday night, make a proposal, and meet Thursday night for him to do counter.
Okay. All right, excellent, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Appreciate the update. Great. Anything else, anyone? Nope. Okay, all right, thank you guys for those liaison reports and the TIF committee update. Just going through. Again, just let me know if you are planning to attend the annual meeting of the Association of Town Finance Committees. Again, it's October 15th, so October's getting like totally busy. So just let me know, because Deb, we're gonna have to put in a request for funding for a check on that. Once I get when I get how many are going. Let me know on that. Anything, correspondence? What do you got?
The news release from the Abington Department of Veteran Services is looking for names and addresses of Abington men and women who will be serving in Iraq and Afghanistan over the Christmas holidays. They're going to be sending out the holiday packages for the 4th year. And they, if you have anybody that you want to, a name that you want to submit, if you could get a hold of Director of Veteran Services, Joe Colantoni, or Liz Shea or Nancy Hurst, and they would like the names no later than October 30th of 2011. And I know this was on the radio this morning too, I think WATD.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of copies here if anybody wants to take some and pass them out.
And I would tell anyone who's listening, if they have this information and don't know how to get in touch with Joe, you can go right on the website too, the
abingtonmass.gov.
.gov, right. I think they can contact them through there too. All right, and then we just, all right. I think we've pretty much hit the end of our agenda. Oh, review of minutes. Sorry about that, Deb. See? All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of September 21st.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, okay. Everyone was here except for Michelle and Sean Tyler, so all in favor of approval of the minutes? Okay, that's everybody. Thank you very much. All right, so our next meeting is scheduled for next